Hello and good Saturday morning to everyone. I just want to start by asking this question. Will we be talking about a major coastal storm system next Friday? We're going to address that and other interesting wave report surprises as we get into the wave report for today, Saturday, the 17th of December, 2022. And as we start our wave report for the Outer Banks of North Carolina, as we have been recently, we are going to jump right into some satellite shots. And this beautiful satellite shot from NASA Worldview from yesterday shows three storm systems prominently. This messy, mucky thing over the Great Lakes of the US, just swirling around up here. A surprise coastal low that formed over the Northeast yesterday as well that pumped out a much larger than expected swell for the Outer Banks. I did some supplemental wave reports yesterday afternoon and found waves that appeared to be, of course, I wasn't out in it. I didn't have a yardstick, but the waves were much larger than predicted. Predicted range was, I'd say, 3 to 5 feet, maybe 2 to 4 feet. And the waves that I saw at Jeanette's were probably in the 5 to 7 foot range. And down at Rodanthe there, they were likely in the 6 to 8 foot range offshore. We got some great footage over on YouTube of both Rodanthe and Jeanette's Pier. And we also did a Friday for Future tribute episode as we walked down Ocean Drive and provided some footage for you of the homes that are being overtaken by the rising seas. So go to YouTube if you're interested in looking at some gorgeous wave shots from yesterday for the Outer Banks. And also, if you are a supporter of the youth climate movement, like I am, check out our Friday for Future segment. Every Friday, we do a Friday for Future tribute segment. It's kind of become a thing here, and I think it's a good thing. So we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep throwing our support behind the youth climate movement and trying to do things to help raise awareness and increase the tempo of climate action. But for today, things are starting to get a little interesting in the weather conditions and in the forecast. And I am going to nerd out on some data, which I like to do. I invite you to nerd out with me on data. If you're a surfer, oftentimes you can tend to nerd out on data, or I don't know, some people just grab a board and jump in the ocean. I'm pretty much a data nerd. I like to know what's going on when I'm getting out in the conditions, and I'm going to try and give you my knowledge so that you can be empowered to deal with the conditions as in the most effective way possible. So this is the infrared satellite shot for this morning. You'll notice that the low that formed off the east coast here is still swirling around. It's lost most of the convection surrounding it, but you can see the little swirl there still up there. Up off of Maine, and the wave heights down here in the Outer Banks are not as high as they were yesterday afternoon, but this mess is still continuing to provide weather for the northern tier of the United States. I pointed this bad boy out yesterday, and we're going to keep talking about it. What's happening here in the Eastern Pacific is we are getting a bit of a moisture flow. And whenever we get a moisture flow running off the Pacific and into the Gulf of Mexico and to the southern tier of the US, and we've got cold air to the south, warm air to the south, cold air to the north, trying to come in, and warm air, particularly warmer than normal air and ocean water temperatures off the US East Coast. All these three ingredients are just what you need to bake up a coastal low pressure system, and the models are not disappointing us. We are, I don't know, are we disappointed? Actually, let me think about this for a second. Are we disappointed that or that we're going to see a coastal low pressure system on Friday? Um, I would say I am like from a surfing standpoint, this is potentially a large wave maker, but from a weather and climate standpoint, this low system that we're looking at is starting to edge into there's a difference. If you're looking at storms, there's the fun category, which doesn't really hurt anybody, but at least for surfers generates enough waves so that you can enjoy. And then there's the dangerous category. And this particular storm, at least in the most recent model that I've seen, is starting to edge a bit into the dangerous category. Of course, the models are still relatively long term. The models are looking out to Friday and Saturday for this potential storm to develop. But the intensity, the predicted intensity of this storm is starting to get into a range where I would think that the weather experts might be starting to show some concern. It's particularly over the National Weather Service and the National Weather um, service over in Canada, both in Canada and the US. So something to keep an eye on both for surf conditions and for just general storm tracking because this thing could be significant. Enough foreshadowing. I'm going to get more into the forecast as we go into this particular storm forecast, but just going back to the base ingredients, we've got moisture coming in off the Pacific, starting to drape over the southern tier of the US and the Gulf of Mexico. We've got warmer than normal water temperatures over the Gulf of Mexico and over the Atlantic Ocean off the eastern seaboard. And we've got that instability coming in from the north in the form of cold air and these impulses of vortice forming conditions. So all these ingredients are there, and we're just kind of sitting here waiting for a coastal low to form, and the models are saying we might get one. Okay, so moving on to the local wave conditions for the Outer Banks for today, and I'm going to go through my three select wave spots. I was very, I don't know if I was disappointed in the models yesterday, but the models did not give us an indicator for what we saw. So it's just something to note. The reason why I go to the beach pretty much every day to provide you with a supplemental observation is because the wave models aren't always accurate. You have to actually be there on the coast to get a good sense of what the conditions are in a real-time kind of way. And that's true today and every day. But yesterday, the wave models and the predicted wave conditions for Friday ended up being way off. And I don't know exactly why. I do know that we had like that coastal low form up off the northeast, and looking at the wave models now, I can see that that's the main feature helping to generate the surf for the Outer Banks at this time, even though the surf conditions have come down a bit. So I suspect that the sudden formation of a potential like a windier, stronger than expected low pressure system for the wave models resulted in that large and it was almost a very stately swell that rolled into the Outer Banks and created these stunning views from the beach. So the wave report for today will come with that caveat. It's just a reminder. Those of us who track waves should know that conditions. Can I say it? Conditions can change moment to moment, minute to minute, hour to hour. So it's one of the dynamic features of the ocean that we love because We enjoy surprises. It's a part of nature. We can't always predict everything. So starting at Jeanette's Pier for today, the wave heights are presently 3 to 5 feet, according to the wave monitors. I haven't yet been down there. I'm going to get some observations for you at the beach today. As I usually do, the wave period is 13 seconds for the primary swell in that 3 to 5 foot surf, and 10 seconds for the secondary swell. Winds are out of the west northwest at 17 miles per hour, so that's offshore and relatively strong wind conditions here. It's not super strong, but 17 miles per hour is pretty breezy. The air temperature is 48 degrees Fahrenheit, which is warmer than predicted. Again, we are getting these warmer than predicted conditions. And then the ocean water temperature is 57 degrees Fahrenheit, which is maintaining. Ocean water temperatures have dropped off a bit over there at Jeanette's Pier, and everyone I saw in the surf yesterday was wearing a full suit, hoodie, gloves, booties. Everyone was pretty much outfitted for cold weather conditions. I'm in the kind of polar freeze my uh, patootie off mode because my wetsuit is only a 3.2, and I need to update my hoodie because it's just one of like those cap things that barely doesn't really even fit, and I don't have booties or gloves. I don't really think I need gloves, but I don't know. Maybe not. But in any case, make sure you've got your cold weather gear set up. It's colder. The conditions are colder, and with those winds coming out of the west northwest at 17 miles per hour, it's going to feel colder. And so the weather conditions for today are expected to be breezy and sunny with a high of 50 degrees Fahrenheit, so a little bit warmer than what you're experiencing, and likely a bit warmer again down there at the shore with that ocean influence. Moving on down to Buxton, big Buxton. Buxton is always the biggest location. I say always. There may be a day when Buxton is smaller than the rest of the Outer Banks, but I haven't found it yet. It, why is Buxton so big? I don't know. I I want to find out. I'm gonna try and talk to an oceanographer. Someone tell me why Buxton is so big. Give me a wave expert. Give me a coastal bottom formation, wave condition, swell generation, channel understanding, ocean geography expert. Tell me, please tell me why. Why is Buxton so big? Today, Buxton is 6 to 7 feet according to the wave monitors, so 6 to 7 feet, so solid in the head high to over high range. The wave period for Buxton is 13 seconds for the primary swell, 10 seconds for the secondary swell. Winds are out of the west northwest at 13 miles per hour, so that's an offshore flow, a bit more moderate there at Buxton. So not as breezy, but you got those big Buxton beasts. And I don't know. Every time I look at Buxton is like big and dark, and it's almost like full of teeth. It's intimidating and enticing at the same time. I don't know. Do you feel that way? I do. But yes, so the primary swell is 13 seconds, secondary swell is 10 seconds, winds are out of the west northwest at 13. Air temperature is 50 degrees Fahrenheit, so a bit warmer down there in Buxton. Ocean water temperatures much warmer in Buxton at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which it just seems that Buxton's got a Gulf Stream influence. It's also the ocean water temperatures there tend to be warmer as well. I'm really interested. I want to go down to Jeanette's Pier and talk to the North Carolina aquarium people and see if they have an oceanographer that can answer my questions. And maybe we will do an interview. And just a note, an asterisk: if you are a ocean scientist, climate scientist, wave expert, professional surfer, any kind of person on the Outer Banks, with a high level expertise on Buxton or just climate features for and wave features for the Outer Banks in general, I would love to talk to you. Send me a private message over on Twitch or YouTube or Twitter, and we will get together and I will ask you the questions and you can be the talker because I know I do a lot of talking and and I just like to hear some thoughts on some things for the Outer Banks. But in any case, moving on to the weather for Buxton, the weather conditions are breezy, sunny with a expected high today of 56 degrees Fahrenheit. So again, as we get closer to the present day, temperatures tend to get warmer. I don't know. We look at the long range forecast, and the long range forecast wants the Outer Banks to be cold. Then we get to the day, and the Outer Banks are a bit warmer. It's worth noting that 56 degrees Fahrenheit is not super warm, but it's warmer than the like upper 40s, lower 50s that I saw in the forecast earlier for Saturday. And then when you get to the day itself, often the conditions are even warmer. So it's just an interesting feature in the weather forecast that I just want to take a note of. Okay, moving down to Frisco. And the south facing beaches here, Frisco tends to be calmer because you don't have the influence coming in directly off the North Atlantic and those long period swells. And so we have a generally more sheltered area down here at Frisco unless you get a really strong southerly swell. Wave heights in Frisco in the range of 2 to 3 feet. For the wave period, the primary swell is 7 seconds. The secondary swell is 13 seconds. Winds are coming out of the west-northwest again in an offshore flow, just slightly offshore here. So just kind of cutting in like this across Frisco. And the air temperature at Frisco right now is 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So also just a little bit warmer than Jeanette's Pier to the north. But the ocean water temperatures are in the range of 67 degrees Fahrenheit. So actually slightly cooler than Buxton, but still very warm, seeming to me for December. 67-degree water temperatures still feels cold, at least for me. If you're getting into water temperatures that's less than 70 degrees, it still kind of is like woo. But still, it's considerably warmer than the 57-degree ocean temperature at Jeanette's Pier. So 67-degree Fahrenheit ocean water temperatures at Frisco. And the weather there is breezy and sunny with another expected high temperature of 56 degrees Fahrenheit. So that completes the local observation segment of the OBX wave report, and I am actually just going to step off here for 1 second and take care of something. Excuse me. So just a minor had to deal with a little doodad there. So yep. So looking at the ocean conditions for the North Atlantic, particularly looking at wave heights, we again find a large low pressure system swirling around in the center of the North Atlantic. This broad circulation is again pumping out quite a lot of swell for the central North Atlantic that then propagates over a large area. And the significant wave heights associated with this broad low are in the range of 25 to 27 feet. And sometimes in this significant wave height range, you can end up with waves double the significant wave height. So waves in the range of, I don't know, 50 to 54 feet, which is pretty big. Just looking out here in the central Atlantic, it's striking to me how large the wave generation area is. And it's been this way for weeks and weeks here in the central North Atlantic as these large lows develop. Closer to the US East Coast, I want to point out this system associated with the coastal low that unexpectedly developed yesterday with significant wave heights in the range of 20 feet. Most of the swell being propagated now is being driven offshore, but we still have some wave propagation coming in here toward the Outer Banks in the range of 5 to 7 feet as we get in closer to the coastal waters. So just picking a few locations here. And I'm looking off Buxton because I just am very curious about Buxton. But in any case, we've got it looks like more like 5 to 6 foot waves in the local coastal region for the Outer Banks. Looking at Florida oh yes, so 2 foot wave heights just off Florida. The Bahamas looks like about 4 to 5 foot wave heights for the Bahamas just offshore. The Caribbean beaches just offshore are seeing between 5 and 6, maybe some larger waves out here as we get toward the eastern end of the island chain in the range of 7 feet. And then just off of Portugal, we're getting waves in the range of 2 to 5, well, 3 to 5 feet, looks like. So that's a sampling of wave conditions across the Atlantic Ocean basin. And now I want to go and talk a little bit more about the storm that I've been chattering about throughout the course of this wave report. So moving on to the global forecast system model portrayed here by the wonderful site that is Tropical Tidbits. Check it out. It's a great weather tracking site. What I've done is I've advanced the model to Friday of December 23rd. And what we see here, actually, let's just roll this bad boy back. Let's go back to Thursday. So remember that moisture flow that I was telling you about, and then the instability. Well, the moisture flow over the south and the Gulf of Mexico, and the instability to the north. And I did talk about warmer than normal ocean temperatures, and maybe I should go back to the Earth null skull models after we talk about this and point out some warmer than normal ocean water temperatures. But these three ingredients by Thursday are really starting to line up. We've got a area of stormy weather draped off the US southeast coast. We've got a moisture flow coming in off the Pacific and draped over the southeast. We've got instability both to the west and to the northwest, and we've got what appears to be a pretty striking temperature variance from north to south. So let's go ahead and run the model and see what happens. So we get a low beginning to develop in the Gulf of Mexico early Friday, and a second area of low pressure system over the mid-Atlantic. This is in this particular model run. We are still almost a week out, so we can take this model run with a bit of a grain of salt. But the thing that we are looking at here is there's a consistency from day to day in the prediction in the formation of a coastal low. The energy transfers from the Gulf of Mexico low up to a low just off the mid-Atlantic US later on in the day and Friday, and then turns into a double barrel low. And this is looks like the model might have changed a little bit. We'll see. We'll just keep running it. And then, transfers back. So we end up with a double barrel low over the US Northeast. And then those lows transfer their energy into a stronger low pressure system off of the Outer Banks. And now at 993 millibars, this is a pretty significant storm. You can see the large rain shield associated with it in this model. And we would expect some rather strong surface winds with a low pressure system of this type. But look what happens in the next frame. So the next frame of the model run has the low moving off toward New York as a 980 millibar storm, so intensifying as it gets into the northeast, and then boom, it starts to bomb out just over New England as a 964 millibar low. And so this looks like to me, I'm not a meteorologist, but I am a weather observer and a reporter on these issues. So it looks to me like a 964 millibar system looks like a very powerful winter storm for the Northeast at this point as it crosses the coastline. 964 millibars is, I mean, in a tropical system, that would be a hurricane. Of course, this is not a hurricane. This is more in the range of a nor'easter and possible blizzard type storm. And then as it moves up into Canada, the low continues to bottom out, bombing all the way down to 955 millibars. That's a very significant storm system over land. That's something to watch. And then for the next frame, the low continues in the 950 millibar range. It looks like the 950 millibars, the last item in the measure is obscured by another measure, but even so you're looking at a 950 millibar system over Canada for a relatively significant period of time. Recurving looks like toward Hudson Bay, again in the third frame, 954 millibars. So very significant storm system now predicted for both the US East Coast, the US Northeast, and for Canada. For us here at the OBX Wave Report, we would definitely expect stormy conditions along the coast, and then we would be saying goodbye to the storm system as it goes and impacts the US Northeast and then Canada. Here, we would not be seeing the worst side of the storm, but even so, it's definitely something to keep an eye on if this low pressure system began to form, say, a little bit further south, say off Florida, and intensifying as it got closer to the Outer Banks, then the issues would be more intense for us. And so I have been talking about ocean surface temperatures for the entire wave report for today. And so let's go back to the Earth Null School monitor, and which is also a fantastic school fantastic source for all kinds of weather and climate information. Looking at the ocean, we're going to look at sea surface temperatures. Let's put in the currents because the currents look prettier in these models. And the Gulf of Mexico temperatures are in the range still of 80 degrees Fahrenheit in this warm pool area. And then as you get closer to the coastline in the upper 70s and at the coast, water temperatures are considerably cooler. Out in the Gulf Stream, water temperatures are in the upper 70s just offshore here and running into the 70s even as it proceeds off the US East Coast, off the US Northeast Coast. These water temperatures are much warmer than normal for this time of year. And so this is an anomaly map, and the water temperatures off the US East Coast and the Gulf of Mexico are in the range of 5 to 6.5, maybe even, yeah, it looks like 6.5 degrees Fahrenheit above normal in the warmest locations, and the average locations probably around 3 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. And then off the US East Coast, you're getting 1 to 11, 15, 1 to 15 degree Fahrenheit above normal water temperatures, which is pretty insane. So you've got these cold temperatures coming in off of Canada and the central US, and you've got this pool of warm, moist air over the ocean region, and warmer than normal and moister than normal air with a lot of lift to it. And that cold air coming into that lifting environment just creates a lot of energy for storms. And right now, with the ingredients of moisture coming in off the Pacific, streaming over those warmer than normal areas, and instability coming in from the north, we've got some storm ingredients. So the models are showing storms, the base conditions are showing that we've got the ingredients for storms, and we're looking at a potential storm by Friday of next week. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me for the OBX Wave Report. My headphones are telling me that it is time to go. So if you guys go out there and charge that surf, be safe. Make sure you got your cold weather protection going on, and I hope you really shred it up. And if you do go, just please remember to also do everything you can to help protect and save the coastal communities that we so care about from the impacts of climate change driven by fossil fuel burning. Thank you for joining me again.